Good morning and welcome back to Other Worlds Wednesday here on Gaming with ADHD, where today we're going to be taking a look at Star Adventurer, old school science fiction rules from the RPG Pundit. This game takes the OSR and puts a sci-fi twist to it, but does it do so successfully? Let's find out. But before we do, make sure you're subscribed to the channel. I have a few OSR rules that I'm going to be looking at in future videos, and if you've never heard of the OSR before, or maybe you're a seasoned veteran of them, hopefully you'll find something you didn't know was even out there. But with that out of the way, let's go ahead and take a look at Star Adventurer. So, as you can see, this is a science fiction role-playing game, which is absolutely more my speed. I much prefer laser guns and energy swords over claymores and, crossbows. There we go. Ha! Horrible examples, but you know what I'm trying to get at. Now, this was released by the RPG Pundit through Spectre Press in 2020. It was written by Kazimir Urbanski, also known as the RPG Pundit, and it is a 40-page PDF and print-on-demand book. It will run you $3.99 to $13.98. Currently, however, it is $9.99 for the print and PDF versions, which you can get through DriveThruRPG. There will be a link down in the description. It is an affiliate link. It does help the channel, but if you're curious, absolutely check it out. Now, what is the OSR? Why am I even looking at it? Well, first off, I have, as I've mentioned in a couple of videos, some ideas for a game that I want to put out, and part of it does involve putting out a role-playing game as well. So I'm actually investigating the OSR and a few other versions of rule sets that I'm considering using. But what is the OSR? So, according to Wikipedia, the general ethos of OSR-style play emphasizes spontaneous rulings from the referee or game master over set rules found in a book. The idea is for the players to engage with the fantasy as much as possible and have the referee arbitrate the outcomes of their specific actions in real time. The idea of game balance is also de-emphasized in favor of a system which tests players' skill and ingenuity in often strange or unfair situations. So, to be honest with you, this really spoke to me. The fact that it emphasizes a lack of balance. To me, not all characters need to be equal, nor should they be. Each character has different strengths, different weaknesses, things that entice you as a player to play that type of character. To me, the game master is the one that's responsible for involving all of the players. Just because you have a thief type character that doesn't have a lot of hit points, it should be up to the game master to make sure that there are situations where the thief or the rogue type character, or in the case of Star Adventurer, a pilot or a diplomat, can have reasons to affect the outcome of the story. They don't all have to be equal in terms of power and influence. They can have differing situations that they can get involved in the story, which to me emphasizes that creativity. So to me, that's one of the biggest things about why I've been sort of gravitating towards the OSR. On top of that, it's usually based on familiar D20 rules. The rules are going to be easy to pick up regardless of which edition you've played. In addition, the emphasis is also on open-ended play with a lot less reliance on printed adventures. A lot of times you're going to have random encounter tables or just random tables in general to help guide the story and find things that the players can interact with. Now, obviously, this is going to require a lot more work on a GM side, but it does also help where if you're trying to create a world, which, to be honest with you, is partly what I'm trying to do by creating my own game, having players who can contribute by helping guide the story and take it in directions you may not necessarily have planned on can help lessen the workload on the GM as well. So, what are some highlights of Star Adventurer? It is a full level-based role-playing game. There is no level limit, but most players are going to cap somewhere around level 13. There are rules for going beyond, but it's up to the players. Basically, at that point, the story is probably done and time to start something new. It is based on the Lion and Dragon rules that the RPG Pundit put out. I will have a review of that book coming later on. I just decided to go with this one because it was a little smaller and easier to digest. It is a D20 based system, so you're going to have your familiar stats of strength, constitution, dexterity, intelligence, wisdom, and charisma. Almost made it. Which you are going to roll 3d6 in order to generate the stat, and you're going to roll those in order. So, again, that is a very old school way of generating your stats. There's no point buy method. There's no roll all of your stats and then assign them how you want. Obviously, it is a game. You can adjust it however you want. As a game master, you can put in any of the alternative systems that have come out over the years, 4d6, or roll 8 stats and drop 2. Whatever it is you want to do, depending on the kind of game that you want to play. But the basic rules are roll 3d6 in order, strength to charisma, and put them in. So you're going to have random stats. This game also emphasizes more skills over abilities, where Dungeons and Dragons 3rd edition brought in things like feats, and basically made ways for all characters to essentially have sort of superpowers. This goes back towards having characters needing skills for diplomacy or trapping or exploration, those kinds of things, and basically making reasons for characters to know things, to be able to do things, and find those situations where they can use those skills. There are 4 steps to character creation. Basically, you're going to roll your stats, then you're going to pick a race, an origin, and a class. Now, your class is going to depend on the stats, but the race and the origin are a little bit more flexible. So I want to just kind of look at that, because that was one of the things that really stuck out to me in the game. So first off, you're going to pick a race. There are 17 different races to choose from. You can either roll a d20 or just pick the one that you want. There are things like amphibioid or explorers, humans, little green men. And the way that they're described is that they are presented as archetypes. You can come up with a background as appropriate. The appearance, the amphibioid doesn't necessarily look like a frog. Technically it could be humans from all sorts of different colony worlds. Maybe they've been genetically modified to live in that particular environment. So technically everyone is a human, but they're going to have different traits based on the planet that they live on. Like the little green men are basically starship pilots. There's gas breathers. So do you need to at that point you can basically come up with whatever description you want for the character. It's very open-ended. And then all of the races are going to have ability score modifiers. Usually it's going to be 1 positive and 1 negative. So you'll get a bonus to your charisma, but a negative to your strength, something along those lines. And then there's also going to be, racial abilities in some cases, night vision, saving throw bonuses, attack bonuses, bonuses to armor class, things like that. So everything is kept, to a little unique based on each one. And these would be things that you would find as typical for players of that particular race. Now, next, you're going to have the origins. There are 20 different choices: commoner, merchant, scoundrel, warrior. Actually, no, warrior is a class, but we'll get into that in a minute. There are many different options for the origins that all are going to give you basically your origin world or your initial training. How did you come up? How did you get into being an adventurer, kind of a thing. Each of these origins are going to give you 3 skills or combat bonuses. Basically, there's going to be 3 different modifiers to skills or like it said, combat bonuses. So, bonuses to ranged attack or gunnery, things like that. And then the last option is the class. Now, all classes do have some defaults. So your hit points are going to be based off of a dice roll plus your constitution modifier. Pretty standard. Your armor class is going to start at 12 and is going to be adjusted based on your dexterity modifier. The combat bonus does vary by class, but there are 3 types of combat bonus: melee, ranged, and gunnery, which is based on strength, dexterity, and intelligence. Gunnery is used for Starship Combat, which is included, but we'll get to that in a couple of minutes. And then there is the base saving throw, which is 16 plus or minus your charisma modifier. There is an alignment system. Basically, it is either lawful, neutral, chaotic, no longer having good or evil, which in a science fiction setting to me makes a little bit more sense. It does at least give you kind of an idea on how your character is going to be perceived by the NPCs, or how NPCs will be perceived by your character. Now, there are 8 choices for character classes: the Brute, the Explorer, the Psychic Adept, the Psychic Mystic, the Psychic Warrior, the Rogue, the Technician, or the Warrior. They determine the following. Basically, your minimum ability scores that you're going to have to have in order to choose that class. The dice that's used for your hit points, and then also what the increase will be. It's only going to increase by 1 or 2 per level. You can and probably will die playing in an OSR game, but, again, it's old school. That happened a lot. It's also going to have your base combat bonus. Not all classes give you a combat bonus. If you're a technician, not a lot of combat. A psychic adept, I think. The psychic adept does not have a combat bonus. So there are differences in the classes. And then you're also going to get 2 or 3 specializations. So like for an explorer, you're going to have the ace pilot or the adventurer specializations. Those specializations will give you bonuses to your skills, and typically at least 1 special ability, but not always. Or like the Psychic Mystic is going to have the Mystic Scholar or the Order Psychic. So basically you're a class, and for lack of a better way to put it, a prestige class, but it's basically one-time bonuses as opposed to a separate leveling type requirement. It does include psychic powers, which in this case I equate pretty much to magic, because unlike a wizard or sorcerer, it's a science fiction setting. So typically those are assigned to, psychic powers. There are 20 different psychic powers available to the psychic classes: the adept, the mystic, and the warrior. And during character creation, you'll get to pick get one psychic power. And then as you advance, you're going to roll on the table to get additional psychic powers. It does work like skills with a bonus based on your charisma modifier. Some of the powers are linked, meaning if you already have one of the powers when you advance, you get to choose one of the linked powers instead of rolling on the table, although you can still roll on the table if you want. All right, so as far as character advancement, it is a level-based system. Characters start at level 1 and earn at least 1 experience for completing an adventure. A GM can award bonus experience based on whether they think it's appropriate, but for the most part, each player is going to get 1 experience every time they play through an adventure. Characters will advance typically every 5 experience points. Early on, it's less. It's 3 or 4 experience points to advance, and later on, it's going to be more expensive. So it can be 10 experience points to advance. Typically, you're going to see that once you've hit level 13, and so trying to move beyond that, it's going to take a lot more. So if you want a higher level game, those are going to take longer to get into. But by that point, you're probably dead anyways. So your class does determine which advancement chart you're going to use. So for example, we have this chart here for the Brute, the Explorer, and the Warrior. And when you advance, you get the choice of either selecting any one option or rolling twice on the table. So if you have a specific direction you want to take your character, you can straight out take the options that you think are best for that build. However, it does mean farther down the road, you may have less options than somebody who just rolled randomly on the table. Now, obviously, rolling randomly on the table may result in you not getting the choice that you want, but it could end up with the choice you want plus something else. So you get to weigh that as a player. And to be honest with you, I think this is one of the best things about this particular rule set, because it does give the players some options, but it's also is kind of encouraging that sort of random aspect, not necessarily optimizing for the perfect build, the perfect warrior, the perfect brute, the perfect psychic, having to adjust a little bit with how your character has developed, which again, I think adds to the creativity, adds to how players have to interact with the game. Now, there are a few expansions that the RPG Pundit does recommend. These are all part of the RPG Pundit Presents series, which generally means they're going to be about, $2 to $3 a piece. Generally, they're very inexpensive. And that's the high-tech weapons, Frantabulous Gonzo robot generator, Skyships Happen, and Station Alpha. Basically, they are obviously themed. They were given as sort of random generator tables for other OSR games, but they're very appropriate for these. I will have links to all of these in the description as well. So there's not a whole lot extra here, but I did reach out to the RPG Pundit, and he did tell me that some people have created additional expansions on itch.io, although I have not checked those out or looked at those prices, so you'll have to forgive me on that one. All right. One thing I do want to touch on, it does include rules for Starship Combat. There are roles, or 3 different roles for the players: the pilot, who's going to control the speed of the ship, and the maneuver roles. Basically think Han Solo flying the Millennium Falcon and everybody else kind of in the back. Then you're going to have a navigator who, for the most part, is during combat will be able to escape to hyperspace if the players feel that that's what's needed. And then there are also gunner spots. So depending on the make of your ship and what weapon systems it has, players that are in the gunnery position can make 1 attack with the weapon per round. The combat works basically like regular combat. Now, it is OSR, so instead of having miniatures and a tactical grid, it's more theater of the mind. So you will have to kind of improvise a lot of that, but that's fine. That's the style of game that OSR generally caters towards. There are critical hits, but instead of in Star Adventure, if you take a critical hit, that damage goes directly to your Constitution, run out of your Constitution points, and fail a saving throw, and your character dies. In Starship Combat, the critical hits will apply towards ship components, the bridge, the hyperspace drive, etc. So it's basically, once you learn the combat rules, it's pretty easy to just jump into Starship Combat as well. Now, what do I like about Star Adventure? First off, I really like the advancement system. That is one of the things that jumped out to me first when I was reading through Lion and Dragon. I think it is, like I said, it's a very different way of doing advancement, whereas Dungeons and Dragons 3rd edition, which is kind of where I cut my teeth. I didn't really play a lot of the older rule sets. Dungeons and Dragons 3rd edition was very regimented. Okay, at this level you do this, at this level you do that, and basically if you took a fighter, it was going to build out the same way. Whereas in Star Adventurer and Lion and Dragon, if you pick a character type, it's going to advance a little differently because of the selection process and the random roll process. So I really like that. I also like the character creation. Having those 3 steps, I think, gives you a very rounded character that can be familiar but also unique, and I really like how they did that. The specializations right away, so that if I take a psychic warrior and you take a psychic warrior, they're not going to be the same. We have the specializations to help differentiate that. As far as the charisma-based saving throw, I did read in the comment section on DriveThruRPG, one person was asking why why charisma was being used for the saving throw, and the author said because charismatic characters tend to be lucky. First off, I thought that was really funny, a nice fun response to the question. But it does keep saves simple, and charisma isn't always a dump stat. There are different saves based on other stats depending on what the save is used for. But I like having that choice of, do I put a good stat into charisma to make sure that I can get through a common saving throw? So I definitely like that. Dislikes. There are no antagonists provided. So I realize it's not required, but it would have been helpful. This will require extra prep work by the GM, but it's not a deal breaker. It was just something that would have been nice. Just a couple of simple characters. They do give a couple of sample starships, and having a couple of sample antagonists would have been good as well. So what do I think overall? So first off, I think it's a very solid rules light system. It's a 40-page PDF, and to be honest with you, 5 of the pages are actually I think 6 are the cover, couple of ads in the back, character sheets and starship record sheets, and an index. So about 35 pages is really all it is. So it's very simple, very clean, but there's enough there to feel like a complete game. Not just feel like a complete game. It is a complete game. There's a lot of freedom given to players and GMs to make the story they want. Now, this will require work. The players are going to have to tell the GM what kind of story they want, what kind of an adventure they want to go on. The GM is also going to have to be able to, pre-plan for a lot of different options. He's not going to have that pre-written adventure in front of him that's going to have everything that he needs, and all he has to do is read a few pieces of dialogue and moderate the combat. No, the GM has to have an idea of what kind of a story he wants to tell, while the players are, honestly throwing roadblocks in his way to try and tell the story they want to tell. So it's going to make the everyone work together a lot more, but that's not necessarily a bad thing. Might require a little bit more work for new players and new game masters, but it's definitely got the freedom there. On top of that, it is very easy to adapt this game into other settings. One of the things that made me want to pick up Star Adventure was reading about somebody who was talking about using Star Adventure to run a Star Wars game for his kids. When I got the PDF and started reading through it, honestly, it feels like Star Wars right out the box. The fact that it has the Psychic Warrior and the Adept and the Mystic, those are straight up Jedi, or at least you can interpret them that way. You can also interpret them, however you want, but it's very easy to adapt it into a Star Wars setting. If you like the setting for Starfinder, but you don't want the rules heavy, system that comes with it, run Starfinder. Get the books for their background, but then use Star Adventure to run your Starfinder game. Now, Star Trek, I think, would be a little bit more difficult because I think the psychic classes don't fit in as well. But the brute, for Klingons, or the adventurer for just your regular Starfleet, red shirt. You can still run a good Star Trek game in this if you want. Overall, it's a solid game. Its price, for $4, give it a try. Who cares? You want to pick up the book, $10 plus shipping, and you're going to get the PDF anyways. So overall, I was really happy with this. I will admit I have not been able to get it to the table, so there may be a few quirks that I'm missing. But at the end of the day, if you're having fun with your players, who cares? Get the book out, go to town, and be a Star Adventurer. So I hope you enjoyed that video. If you did, please do give it a thumbs up, and make sure you subscribe to the channel. Like I said, I've got a few videos coming out each week covering all sorts of tabletop gaming content, and I'd love for you to come along. Also, if you'd like to know about more of the role-playing games that we've covered, I will have a link to my role-playing game review playlist down below, and check out some of those videos. So, thanks for watching, and we'll talk to you next time. Bye.